teachers will tell you that they don't teach kids how to read. That's not something that schools do.
I don't know that word. I don't even know how to read. I don't know why I did.
The school has lacked proficiency. The school is not demonstrating an ability to transfer skills because that's the premise of their charter.
Now explain what that means.
I don't know.
She were a Sahalit.
Why are we moving forward with social studies if Lil Fifi can't really read Cat in the Hat like that?
I don't know that word. I don't even know how to read. I don't know why I did.
She wore a silhouette. She were a, I don't know what this said.
List a few things that you would do to actually assist in accommodating students who are struggling to read on level.
What the f does that say?
I don't know, bro.
I don't know what this means. I don't know, bro.
What's your thoughts on who's actually supposed to be the one to transfer the skills? Is it the parent or is it the school? Which one is more important in the education process? It's the parent-student union. And it's no secret that Philly students have suffered a reading and math deficiency crisis. Now, who's at fault? The parent or the teachers? Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a literacy or illiteracy crisis on our hands.
Read the index card for me.
She wore a suit, clothes that were. Who's this for? Extraordinary, but somewhat Gertrude?
Now explain what that means.
I don't know.
Now we have today Dr. Kenyon Meeks. Care to introduce yourself and let the world know what it is your role is administratively or whatever your work professional history is that's pertinent to the topic.
It's amazing when you think about it. 25 years. 25 years I've been in education, working in, now working as a coach. Feels like it's a full-time job, when you have children, that are in sports. But my 25 years of working in schools, I started out working with gang members in New Jersey. And that kind of opened my eyes to the poverty situations that some of our young men and women were going through, and I had the opportunity of being the in-house suspension teacher. So what that did for me was that gave me the opportunity to have real life conversations with our youth, and they, they come from that unstable housing, some of the gang members, their family members are the people in the gangs, so it was different to have maybe 4 to 5 different gangs in one area,
Okay.
So I had the opportunity to check their mindsets and, get them words of encouragement, inspiration. And then I got a lot of feedback on young men who was going to ride this gang thing to their past. You know what I mean? Now, when we talk about reading, it's so many different ways of reading now, from a behavioral standpoint to them actually reading in a book. They have to be street smart, where they come from. So they got to read the room a lot, you know what I mean? And, so crazy the lifestyle, that your students come from, and how you have to be an opening ear for them, So I spent years in that area working one-to-one with young men, worked for an NFL player who had a young man living at his home, and I would drive out to, Sicklerville, to mentor to this kid until he graduated. My initiative to bring NFL players into the schools, had Deshaun Jackson come to our school. So then after my role and had Gary Brackett come to the school out in Jersey, so
Okay.
I mean, it was awesome. I was able to bring some entertainers out there to come visit the kids, talk to speak to them. So just, trying to get them to understand that these are influential people, but you can be an influential person in your society as well. So
now, from an academic proficiency standpoint, from
Yes.
your experience in the Philadelphia school system, and you've contributed at length because you had a pretty lengthy career in the learning environment. So from your experience with the learning environment and what we see today with the results, regardless of the process that's being implemented, we do see the results and they're deplorable at the moment. And
Right.
everybody's looking for the remedy, especially the parents of these students who we rely upon the school and the learning institution to actually transfer the skills from pre-K all the way until they graduate high school. So we're going to get into this viral video that's circulating among the students of Philadelphia, as well as everybody in the world right now has their attention focused on the Philadelphia school system. And I'm just curious to see what the response, the measurable plan is actually going to be that's going to be implemented by the school system to pretty much at least make an attempt to directly remedy the whole illiteracy crisis that we have in Philadelphia. Because as it stands right now, more than half of the people in general, men, women, and children, happen to be functioning illiterate right now in Philadelphia. So I wouldn't expect the family or the parents to be able to actually assist in a lot of areas when it comes to academic reinforcement of the actual program that's being implemented in the school. Obviously, you want to transfer the skills not only to the student, but also to the parents who are going to be responsible for ultimately reinforcing whatever it is that you attempted to teach during the school day. So I think there is a disconnect there in the parents and the teachers. We can get into this a little bit later, or maybe even in another video. But today I want to focus on the actual student, because the fiduciary obligation of the schools and the school district is directly with the student. The parent is the advocate for the student, of course, and the caregiver, of course, but the fiduciary obligation is actually to transfer the skills to the student who you've had for 7 or 8 hours a day since they were 5 years old. So I'm just wondering how we get to a place where high school students aren't able to read proficiently at such staggering statistics. But let's get into this video.
Read the index card for me.
She wore a suit, clothes that were. Who's this for? Extraordinary, but somewhat Gertrude?
Now explain what that means.
I don't know.
Oh, she wore a sahalat of clothes that were extraordinary, whatever, bro, but somewhat Gucci.
What does that mean?
She wore a lot. Wait, she wore. Bro, I don't know, bro. Can you take the card back, please?
She wore a. Oh, baby. She wore a silhouette of clothes that were. I don't know that word. I don't even know how to read. I don't know why I did this.
She wore a silhouette of clothes that were extraordinary, but somewhat gauche.
All right, now what does that mean?
I have no idea. Like it's nice or something like that. She wore a
I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say.
Wow.
I can't read it. Can't read it. Cancel back.
Read the index card.
What the f does that say? Why am I reading this? No, I'm not reading this. This is a whole bunch of bullshit.
The colonel asked the choir to accommodate the governor's schedule.
What does that mean?
He's asking the choir to accommodate to the governor's schedule, right?
Yeah, in your own words.
There's a governor's schedule, and so the colonel is asking the choir to accommodate to it.
In your own words.
I don't know, bro.
The colonel asked the choir to accommodate the governor's schedule.
Alright, what does that mean?
Right? They asked the people to sing for the governor's schedule. I don't know what this means.
The colonel asked the choir to accommodate the governor's schedule.
What does that mean?
He asked the choir to accommodate. I don't know, bro. It mean he asked them to read his schedule.
So, as a school administrator, as somebody who's worked with schools in an academic capacity as well as a behavioral health capacity, what would be your first order of business? And if you would, list a few things that you would do to actually assist in accommodating students who are struggling to read on level.
So you really gotta think about the shortage, right? The shortage of, because if we just did a poll on those interviews right there, the majority of them were not at reading or comprehension levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, that was kind of hard, man, honestly, to really think about it. And I'm playing back the 25 years of working in education where reading wasn't the primary focus. You know what I mean? We say reading and math are the two important, right? But if we're talking about, these are middle school, high school, right?
No,
Young men and women.
This is high school.
This is straight high school, right?
Yeah.
And students who usually fall behind from K through 3 often never fully catch up. You know what I mean? Like they never really have the opportunity to catch up. And this is a result of that. This didn't just happen.
So, right, exactly, because they're obviously in high school. So I would presume that they read better than they did when they were in 5th grade because they're older and they've obviously been in school, involved in a school program. So this is where they are right now. And from my observation, actually listening to what they've been able to read, they can read. So obviously they can be taught to read proficiently. But the problem I've experienced is that the schools are not willing to, you can't double bill. So if they don't have a learning disability and they haven't been classified with a 504 plan or something to that effect, then they won't be able to double bill for 2 mainstream education programs for the same student. So they're really reluctant, actually really opposed to actually having an outside agency come in and work with these kids individually until they get themselves on level. And they just keep pushing them through the program that obviously is not targeting their inability to read to proficiency, because you can't really do both things with the current program because that's not what the mainstream school program is equipped to do. So these kids, if they don't know how to read on level by kindergarten, then they probably won't ever read on level. And I think it's really that cut and dry. But what would you say the main focus of the education plan should be? When these kids come across your desk, each one of these kids come into your office, they need to learn how to read. What would be in that education plan?
I mean, I think that would be it. That would be the focal point, right? Because I know that I have a student who's strong in math, and I know I have another student that's strong in reading, right? So if I have them, because they're usually contained, they're usually in traveling together in the early years of, they don't start really rotating until they get to that middle school, high school level, right? Where they're in the classroom with, a middle school. We were a little different, but, and I was at an all boys school, in Philadelphia. So it was everything to get these boys to read. Like that was really, and we had young men that are really on level with reading, but then we have some who are not, right? So I believe the earlier years are the solution, where the parents are the biggest influencers. I know we said we're going to talk about that later, but it always go from home to school, school to home. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of other influences.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that, because I hear a lot from the school administrators and the school teachers in particular make the most noise in this regard, where it is the education plan is heavily reliant on family support and parental support, parental reinforcement. But this is where I have a problem. This is where I have a problem with that. And obviously, I'm not opposed to parents being the primary support system. I'm not opposed to that. But that's pretty obvious. But the problem that I have with the learning institution being so heavily reliant on a third party, because I don't call this other person that's supposed to be the support system, or these other people, I don't call them parents, because I think we get lost in what we basically have this imaginary parent in our head when we say the parent should be doing this or the parent should be doing that. When the parents are not licensed teachers, the parents may or may not be able to transfer the skills, or may not even be able to comprehend the skills that are necessary to begin with. And 9 times out of 10, the parent came up in the same school system that ultimately did not yield great results with them either. So with that being said, we have to look at this from the standpoint of this: what is the support system that we have, if any? Now, my whole thing is the fiduciary obligation is for the school and the learning institution. The fiduciary obligation is actually to the student. So in your education plan, I don't ever see the parent actually listed as part of the education plan for how you're going to teach the student in the school. How's the school going to transfer skills to the student? The parent is not in that equation anywhere in the education plan, because the parent is obviously not in the school and they're not in that learning environment. But when we speak about the just basically lack of proficiency, I like to frame it as though the school has lacked proficiency. The school is not demonstrating an ability to transfer skills, because that's the premise of their charter. Now, what's your thoughts on who's actually supposed to be the one to transfer the skills? Is it the parent or is it the school? Which one is more important in the education process?
I mean, I really believe it starts with, the government, right? And then we're talking about the district leadership. Schools are definitely responsible for, for instruction, for effective instruction. You know what I mean? Like, they really are the everything that the schools need, and we have to be able to put the parents on watch, You know what I mean? You just giving them the communication to let them know this is what's going on. Now we do need your assistance on making it consistent. If that means your kid putting extra time in when they get home or a certain part of the evening or before they go to bed, that creates consistency and knowledge increase by the time they get back to the classroom. So I do believe all parties.
You know what I don't like about the parent and this third party reinforcement support system that's so necessary and really just something that it seems as though the schools are saying that they can't really be expected to be very effective transferring the skills without the parent support. I just feel like it's really a luxury if you have that third party support, but when the student is with you in the school all day, why not accommodate the student who can't read to proficiency? Why not, instead of that student being in a group module, which obviously this public school, the private school is a classroom setting, it's a group module. There are students in there who are behind. Why waste any instructional time where there's a lesson that requires this reading skill in order for you to even follow along or be expected to comprehend something that you can hardly read? Why not apply that instructional time during the school day with the specific students who are struggling to read? Why not just put them in a one-on-one or small groups setting and work on specifically learning to read, not just being read to, not just being called on to read, not doing sight words, but actually phonetically learning how the sounds of the letters work, how the sounds of letters work together, how to actually read and meet them on their level. Why are we moving forward with social studies if little Fifi can't really read Cat in the Hat like that?
Right.
Why not get little Fifi reading Cat in the Hat and then move forward with little Fifi instead of doing social studies? Why are we not able to budget that?
So when we always talk about, when you think about foundation work, right? Foundation work starts early in the process before you get to the roof, right? So during that foundational period is when you got to tap into the academic achievement or where they stand as far as academic understanding. And by the time everything you're saying is correct, that's exactly what should happen. It should be, and I'm sure in some cases it is, because we're talking 8 to 10 hours, 50 hours a week that our kids are, in the schools being taught, by educators, right?
That's a lot of hours, man.
That's a lot of hours compounded over time, right? So you're talking over 200 hours a month. You know what I mean? And it's 24 hours in a day. So where the other 14 is going, 7 of those is sleep, right? So when you really think about it, you're really only given 140 hours for your child a month.
Now, let's think about it from this perspective, because I know we like to basically focus mostly on the results when it comes to education, and we look at these kids and they're 17, 18 years old, 19 years old sometimes in high school, and we say, well, why aren't they able to do things? Because you look at this able-bodied person who seems to be able to do all types of things with their phone, and they can function in society to a degree, and a lot of them are going to college and they can't really read on level. That's a whole other topic. But my thing is, when you have kids who are in high school, it's easy to pass the buck because they seem like they should be able to do it. You can look at them and say, why can't this person who can do her hair so beautifully, she can do her edges and she can watch a tutorial for 3 hours until she learned how to do that. She got her makeup. She's doing all this by herself. She could be a hairstylist, this and that. And you say, you got all these expectations of this person just because they're mature in all these other ways, right? But where, like you said, it starts in early childhood education. And that's where I know we're dropping the ball, because the kids in preschool, if they don't know ABCs and the sounds that the letters make, then I can't expect them to be able to read in kindergarten. So we're going to teach those kids in kindergarten the sounds of the letters and the ABCs. And if they don't catch on in kindergarten, then first grade, it's going to start to show, because we're going to be doing a little bit more than sounds of the letters and identifying the letters and things like that. So it starts to show in second and third and fourth grade where, hey, why is the school not just putting little feet back into a one-on-one learning environment when he's 5 years old? Because he didn't catch on last year. So we're not even going to let him go in the mainstream classroom.
So do you know when you really should observe that? When little Fifi is acting out during math time. When you do your analytics, you see that he usually acts out during math time. So during that math block, you have that one-on-one time with him. Now you're taking him out of his current environment because he probably feels, or she probably feels, some type of way about not knowing the work and how it will look through classmates' eyes. And they don't even, we don't know that the classmates don't know the work. When I was there, I knew there was certain people who had more knowledge in certain areas in the classroom, but that didn't happen during elementary and middle school. I didn't know who was the smartest, who was we only knew who was the most athletic around that time, So for our kids, man, you really have to be there for them and analyze them. Analyze what's going on a consistent basis. We're talking about 50 hours a week. If you can't get what you need out of the classroom and in the environment, in the school environment, and the 50 hours a week that you're putting in, I mean, even think about it from a safety standpoint. You go out in the streets with your student as well. So now you see how they conduct themselves transitioning back home. So I used to do something called safety corridors, right? And safety corridors has me driving around, but it gives me the opportunity to see my students as they transition to the bus stop, as they transition to the poppy store, as they, so I build relationships wherever they go. So I know that all they have to do is announce on the bus, don't make me call, Dean Meeks, and students start acting right. They start acting correct. So I just think that it's all about pouring into the half and pouring into the half full. You know what I mean? Like really just, here we go again. We talk about staff and staffing. There's not enough educators to be there for our students, when it comes to Philadelphia,
Why do you think it's such a teacher shortage? And why do you think so many teachers are quitting and seeking other positions in the education field other than teaching, or they're just going into other industries? Why do you think so many teachers are so despondent with just the whole teaching process? I guess it looks like, because that seems to be the consensus, that they're just not being effective. And I'm always curious what they believe the true reason for that is. But A
Yeah.
lot of times they will
Yeah.
tell you, hey, we don't have the resources. And when I hear them say, hey, we don't have the resources, we don't have the staff, and you want these results with the students, I say, okay, well, those are the reasons. Why not just stick with that? Why shovel your onto the parents? Because you know the parents are not the teachers. The parents
Right.
have done their part and made sure that the kid went to school. I feel
Make
like
sure they get there.
a parent who has no education background, especially a parent who may or may not be equipped to even comprehend a lot of the concepts that's being taught in the school, can't really be expected to be that support system. So when we have that in place, that is somebody that we would rely on. But when you're in the behavioral health aspect, you would always have a treatment team. And my personal belief is that every student should be lawfully entitled to an IEP, an individualized education plan for all. I don't believe
So,
it's a student who should not have an individualized education plan. And if
see,
anybody,
I,
obviously there's a negative stigma attached to that, but that's simply you having a plan for your success and having
yes,
an adult who's actually an expert in helping you attain those goals, your short term and long
absolutely.
term goals,
Absolutely.
the plan, the measurable plan that you will implement and execute in order to achieve or at least work towards achieving those goals academically, during school, long term, my fault, long term, you want to go to college, or long term, you want to be a business person. Why aren't
Yes.
these goals written out? And why will we allow all this time to go by and allow a kid who can't read to proficiency, and they're obviously in your school, they're enrolled in your school, they can't be truant, or that would be a whole different set of circumstances that would be dealt with after 3 absences in a row,
Right.
unexcused. So we know that these kids are in school. Why aren't they being taught to read? Now, I've met a lot of teachers, and I've been in enough schools to know that teachers will tell you that they don't teach kids how to read. That's not something that schools do. They don't teach.
Right.
So why do we, when we know these things, why don't we just make that the the topic of the discussion? Why are teachers coming out saying that parents need to do this, parents need to do that, but we know we got all these issues where we're lacking as an
Right.
administration, as a school, as far as resources and so many other things.
So, the village, right? The teachers that enter the village are, I hate to say it, you kind of come in selfish, right? Unless you have a lot of experience working with the youth. You're really, a lot of programs are allowing educators and non-educators to go into the classrooms, for a certain amount of years, and then could pursue whatever it is they were entering education for in the first place, right? So to get some of those bills paid, you have to go teach after you finish, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of teachers are in the classrooms just to get those years out of the way. So now they can go to law school, or they can go to med school, or they can go, right? So it's used as a platform to leverage your career. It's unfortunate, right? Because we all come from the school systems, doctors, lawyers, right? We all come from a school system. So what begins to happen is those teachers see the climate that they're in, understand what their ultimate goals were, begin to love on the student, because how can you not when you work in education? Love on these young men and women, right? Just knowing that they have a promising future somewhere, right? We don't know. It's unpredictable, right? But what we're trying to do is get to the foundation of it and be able to help, remove some of your holes before you get to the next phase, before you get to middle school. This is why I always say elementary school is so important. And I went into elementary education. That was my track. That was my lane, because I understood human development starts there. It starts right there, and if you can get the foundational work in order during that period, then you can build a nice house. You can build a nice young man, a nice woman. You know what I mean? Females have a tendency to get education quicker than some young men. And I think for the young men, they have to carry on this tough man persona. I even had it on the middle school level, where I see guys who are 4.0, 4.2, 4.3 students, right? And then you have those other young men who are barely making it. And it's a lot of division that goes on in that, a lot of fights, a lot of arguments, because academically I'm better than you. I have a behavior problem as well, but academically I'm higher than you. And academically you're low, and you have a behavior problem, or you get into a lot of situations. So it's like you get in both sides of a young man. For me, because it was an all boys school. So I think education is so important, but I think over time it stopped being about the books. You see books disappear, right? Everything is computer now. So we're in a technological age where they are picking up quicker because they're grabbing their parents' phone. They're grabbing laptops. They get computers in school. So their technological intelligence is improving. Their reading levels are down, but the computer writes for you now. The computer pretty much spells for you, right? The computer now reads books to you, right? So,
Well, we always had that.
but we didn't have it in the form. We had to go to the library. We went to the library and physically had books. You know what I mean? We had to use microfiche.
Well, I mean, the book now is in the monitor. I mean,
we had the books. Yeah,
right.
we had the books.
We had a turn page, but they just have a monitor. I mean, it's the same thing. We just read half our books with actual pages, and the other half was in the computer, because I did a lot of research in the library on the computer back when we went.
But that was your later years. You wasn't in.
No, the library had computers at Pitt. I went to the University of Pittsburgh. They had computers. I had to do.
So I'm talking about research. That's college, right?
Right.
But think back when we were in elementary, middle, right? Going into high school is when we were getting familiar with it.
Right. Because I remember Oregon Trail when I was in like fourth grade.
Right.
Fifth grade, fourth grade, third grade. I remember Oregon Trail during computer class. We had the brown computer, the
big brown, the weird looking one, right? And a lot of schools didn't have that.
But you know what bothers me now? I'm gonna just cut straight to it, because what really bothers me is that pre-K and that elementary early education phase, because, and this is really why, and this is just dollars and cents right here. We have a thing in Philly called the sugary drinks tax. And the sugary drinks tax, when it was proposed, it was for education, education, education. We're going to pay for pre-K. Pre-K is going to be free. Everybody's going to basically have this extra year of, childcare. Basically, is what it amounts to. It's still kind of daycare, pre-K, but it's supposed to be an educational component to it. And I would presume that a pre-K program that's facilitated by the school district would concentrate more on the academic piece, the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s, the colors, the shapes, and prepare them for kindergarten. But
yes,
that's why I don't understand why we don't examine the proficiency of kids who graduate or get promoted from pre-K to kindergarten. Why aren't we focused more on that? Because that's where we're lacking. That's the only way you get it in high school. Because you don't forget how to read. So I know these kids never knew how to read on level.
Right.
If you can read on level in first grade, then you can be taught to read on level by a school facilitator without third-party academic support, because you have a kid who's now educable, who can be taught car because they know at already, or they know the sound of A and they know the sound of C already, so they can be taught by somebody outside of the home. So it's just strange to me that we're not focused on the resources that we actually have, because that sugary drinks tax, it was proposed as it's going to pay for pre-K. And then after they got it passed, they said, oh, well, we're just going to put about 30% of it to pre-K. And nobody batted an eye. And we've been paying this sugary drinks tax. I mean,
almost 10 years.
Right. Now, Arizona 99-cent can tea costs 99 cents. Is on the can. But you got to pay $1.50 something when you go to the store in Philly because it's a sugary drinks tax. Now, that's a hefty little ransom. Why are we not seeing better results in pre-K and kindergarten?
So let's really think about that from a supply and demand standpoint, right? So the tax is a law that's out there, but mainly the school kids are the ones that are buying these products. You know what I mean? If you think about the Poppy store being on a 2 mile, less than a mile radius, but a 2-block radius, there's a Poppy store, right? And there's a school. So if you have a school near Poppy's or any store for that matter, they're going in there to buy the snacks, the sugary drinks, they're the ones putting the money into it. So when they came up with them giving the money back, you're not going to see it. You know what I'm saying? And not to mention they're benefiting off of it. You know?
Well, I just figure it's a school program, and there's really not too much expectation for the pre-K to yield any type of academic progress for whatever reason. If you're in pre-K, because I just look at it from, the school system, they don't do things the way I do things at home, but I have all my kids before they are 4 years old, they all have mastered the sounds of the letters and numbers, and they have some words. And by the time they get to the time it's September, we don't go to pre-K here. I don't do pre-K. I teach them for that year as well, and I make sure that they have mastery of all of that early education. And when they get to kindergarten, they're in second grade, really academically. So we're already demanding differentiated instruction when they get to kindergarten. So they'll be getting second grade work and most of the core courses when they get to kindergarten. They'll already give it to them after the first week of them being there, because we're not going over sounds of the letters and what letter is this, little Johnny? We're not doing that by 5 years old over here.
Love that.
So we're not even doing kindergarten really when we get to the school. We're doing first grade, second grade work, and we getting differentiated instruction the whole time we in the school. And then by the time they old enough to take the well, not old enough, but by the time the gifted test is available to them as far as the school district, they go in there and knock that out. And now we in there because they rather do the gifted program, have your kid in gifted instead of differentiated instruction, because that's more work on the teacher. You know what I mean? They got to give your kid second grade work, and then they got to give everybody else this, and your kid got to be in a off-body self during the school day. Or if it might be other kids in there too, they'll be in a 2 or 3 kid group because they getting differentiated instruction too. And the teacher don't really want to have to do that. So they'll really advocate for your kid to get into gifted so that they don't have to have them in there. So I find, but you got to be really proactive in order to get those kind of results, because a lot of times the schools won't even look if your kid is on level or above level. The teacher is not really worried about them because they got these behaviors and stuff to deal with kids that's not on level, and they got to worry about that more so. So I find that when your kid is on level or above level, they don't pay them no mind in the school. So you kind of get a bad break when your kid is above level, unless you get in that gifted program, because that's the only place where they're going to be really rocking and rolling. But man, that whole all these millions of dollars, and now with this sugary drinks tax, man, and then they got this Lyft and Uber tax. You know, you gotta pay $1 for ride share tax, man, $1 on everything. That's supposed to go to education too. And I just know they pulling another swing move. Nobody really talking about it for some reason, but I mean, you got the sugary drinks tax, and then you got this other tax that's supposed to go $1 off for every ride. That's going to be millions of dollars a day in a big city like Philly, and they're not going to use it for school. That's the crime of it all. They're not going to even use it for school. So
you almost get amnesia about it.
But they talk about it like they're so passionate about this education thing, and none of the things that they come up with are measurable. How do you get that kid right there who can't read on level? What are the resources that you're going to dedicate to that kid and teaching that kid, that pupil, how to actually read on level? It's not hard. Every one of these kids on this video are able to read. Every one of them read it. That's what I don't even understand. It's like they're saying they can't read. You're not reading to proficiency is not the same as being illiterate. Like we kind of blow these numbers up too a lot of times, and then we say the parents are the reason why this kid don't know what gauche means. Well, who the hell knows what gauche means? Most people don't know what gauche means. I mean, it's a vocabulary word. Tell her what it means. Make her write it down 3 times, define it, come back tomorrow, and she'll remember it. Now she'll use it in a sentence, and whoop-de-whoop, we done. But no, let's just ridicule the student and the parent instead of just focusing on what's lacking in the accommodations that's been provided or even assigned by the school. The learning institution is the one that's supposed to identify all those things.
That's the one. Yes.
Ooh. Parents don't even know what that means. Never even been to an IEP meeting. And I think an IEP for all. IEPs for all. That's where, if anybody can hear me, is this thing on? IEP, individual education plans for all. That should be a human right. And we'll see the results, because within that, we have a team of people who have each are integral member of the team. The education plan has to be implemented, and we have to revisit these items every week, and we have to take hourly and incremental notes about how effective this plan has been and what was going on, when it was working, what wasn't going on, what happened on this day and this half an hour. and we'll get real technical about making sure that little Fifi, who didn't know how to spell cat last week, we gonna make sure he know how to spell cat next week.
Yeah. Right.
What we doing if we ain't doing that?
Right. Yeah. No, you hitting those areas that are sensitive, and like you said, families and parents don't understand. They don't even know what the proper questioning would be, especially parents with students who have IAPs. If you're not well versed in that area, then you wouldn't even know the language that is being discussed in the meetings. You know what I mean? An IAP meeting is real. You know what I mean? It's really telling you about your student and what needs to be in place, to improve their reading levels, to improve their comprehension, their math skills. I think about when I was in school, math was a strong point for me. Like math was my go-to. Reading and comprehension is where I struggled, but the beauty behind, teaching this is there are so many avenues to help our student today, and I keep going back because if we didn't bring our books home, the reading material that was at my home wasn't on my level. My parents were older, my uncle who I lived with and my mom, they were older, So we really having a conversation that definitely should never stop, until you see improvement. Like you said, your model with homeschooling for those years are amazing. That's the blueprint right there. If you ever wanted to, if the question you asked me is, what is the solution? The solution is what you are currently doing with your kids.
But see,
you know what I mean?
This is where we get tricked up because everybody doesn't have the education background and doesn't know
Right.
how to actually teach. See, it's
Right.
in certain contexts, teaching without a license is actually illegal for a good reason. So you can do a lot of harm if you're trying to teach somebody in those, especially in those early developmental years. You could do a lot of harm if you don't know what you're doing. But the
Right.
reason why I like the IEP's individualized education plans for all as a birthright is because it makes the parent the head of the team. See, if you have an IEP, the parent is the head of the team. So the rest of the experts actually a big responsibility is to make sure that we educate the parent so that they can be a member and be effective. And we're having these meetings every month or so or as needed because that's
Right.
the approach it has to be. It has to be individualized or these kids will get left behind and they'll not be reading to proficiency or doing math to proficiency, and they'll still move forward without addressing those issues. And it's really that simple. So it has to be individualized. And I think the only reason why they won't do it that way is because they'll have to hire another agency to come in and work with these kids during regular education hours. And those hours are billable for mainstream education. If the kid doesn't have any mental health issues or doesn't have any disabilities, then they're not going to be able to bill for it. And I just think it's a travesty because the student is not going to get the proper accommodations. And it's just because the school district is not willing to use that money and appropriate it in the best interest of the student. And that's just really where we at. So we got to have that in the IEP for everybody. And as soon as we get that, we'll see these individuals, because I mean, look at it. We got 7 different learning styles. 7 different learning styles that are officially recognized, right? Universally recognized. But then you have how many different learning styles per class? I mean, there's no way that a school can be equipped to handle that in the group module. It's just not possible, because every student in there has a different learning style, but you're lecturing.
Yes.
And then in this class, we're watching video, and or this one we're doing whatever your teaching style is. It may not really connect with most of the students, just by statistically. Most of the students are not going to get that because of the way that it's being taught. So knowing that, and knowing that the school is not equipped to actually do what is really necessary to transfer the skills to each of the individual students, why blame the parents instead of just saying that? That's what pisses me off. It's like, yo, I just know that y'all can't do everything that you would have to do in order to actually really yield the results that are needed. But y'all want to blame the parents instead of saying, hey, come down here and tell them this is what we need in the budget so we can do X, Y, and Z. Every year they just come back and ask for a higher salary and less work. That's what the teachers want. Every year we want to do less work, like they work at Burger King. We want to do less work. We stressed out. I get it. You stressed out, but you don't just work at the corner store, at the supermarket. You work in education.
Yeah, educating young minds.
Right. So you're going to have to demand of the learning institution to provide the resources and accommodations. And don't make it about the parent, because the parent don't exist in the school. It got to be skills, academic skills are being transferred during school billable hours. Other than that, you need to cut a check for this third party, whether it be a parent or whoever is able. I feel like it should be like, hey, look, this kid needs additional support. Okay, do we have first right of refusal? Do we have a parent that's equipped to do it? Just like a home health aide. You know what I mean? Pay with the same type of model. You got a person anywhere in the world. Hey, go find somebody that can do 1 hour of reading tutoring with this student, math tutoring with this student, and get them from the level they're at to the level they need to be at. And we'll do this 3 times a week. Or every day after school, or whatever the case may be, whatever they're willing to pay for, and pay
like
$20.
Whenever that block it,
right? Like pay them $20 for that hour, and
it's only an hour needed, right? It's only an hour needed. So,
but look, I ain't a genius. Everybody know that would work, but we ain't doing it for a reason. So I just look at it like some political stuff going on, and the black and brown sisters and brothers in the schools and in them corridors is taking the worst L, and they don't even realize it.
But then that's, I'm telling you, it's more acting out, and it's more frustration amongst our young people, which is causing more drama in the schools, which causing, and people are not trained, educators are not trained for the other stuff that the classrooms hold when they roasting each other. I like to use, they roasting each other. Somebody gets angry, a fight breaks out. A teacher is not equipped or to be able to break up the fights that I've seen happening, in these schools. So, I mean, it's so many different avenues that stop our student from learning. So IEP for all would be a great training for the parents that show up for the meetings.
I think so.
If they show up for the meetings, it's not just a meeting, it's a training for you to better serve your IEP. You like you said, you are in control. You the I in IEP. And then the educational piece is done by the educational team.
Well,
So
I would say have the parent be the first option, but
yes,
assign,
the I.
but allow the parent to be the one to assign an advocate to head that IEP team. So if the parent knows that, hey, I can't read either, so I don't want to be the head of this education team for my own kid because I know I ain't the one for that. But
Right.
she got an uncle that went to graduated from Howard. He could do it. He willing to do it. He wants to do it. Done deal. But see, when we don't have a treatment team or education team focused on the individual, we don't attack it that way. Because from the behavioral standpoint, if you got a behavior plan, we all up in there. Everybody, all these professionals going to be in there examining these notes. We're going to schedule the next meeting at the end of this meeting. And we're going to, and if any of these strategies that were intended and were prescribed to actually help you meet your treatment plan goals didn't work by the end of next week, the end of the following week, and we looking at every half an hour, what strategy was implemented during this half an hour? What strategy was implemented during that half an hour? What were the results? What happened? What did the client say? What was going on? What time of day was it? Was it cold? Was it hot? Was they sweating? Was they fighting? Was they laughing? Break it down like that. I guarantee you, a kid who reads on this level, if they was being examined and supported on that level, by that level of accommodation with academics, there's no way that kid that can read on the level that they displayed or demonstrated on this video, there's no way they wouldn't be reading above proficiency in the next month, because they all are capable of reading. But look, Dr. Meeks, if there's anything you want to close with, we've been up here about an hour. We can get right back to it, because I want to definitely touch on what the teachers got to say about this whole phenomena, why these kids in Philly can't read word for day. So you tell me, man, what you know good? Anything you want to leave them with?
I mean, it is, something magnificent happened with this conversation, right? Because we have kids, we're raising children right now, and we're both pretty much at home with our kids, right?
Right.
What this does for us, it opens us up to the possibilities that we know that the schools need. You know what I mean? And it's happening in our homes. Because as you were speaking, I always put my boys, we're in the car, we're going over, what's this color mean and what does that color mean? And we're having these conversations that are improving their understanding of life, right? And they're reading everything we see on our drive, everything we see in the house. We're reading, we're breaking it down, we're decoding the words, I think once education becomes fun, and you're not dealing with a lot of behaviors, I really do think that the behaviors that are happening are stopping the process of learning. It's slowing the process of learning. It's slowing the teacher's timeline to getting the students to understand what's being taught. It's the levels, right? All of this is in one melting pot, and it doesn't taste good. You know what I mean? It doesn't taste good from a futuristic standpoint, a current standpoint, and a past standpoint. So hitting them in the beginning is the key. So that's where I am, bro. You know, just understanding the beginning, you know, with the end in mind. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Well, that's definitely some gems from Dr. Meeks. We're going to keep this thing going, man. It's the Parent-Student Union. We're just here to advocate for the youth and try to make some headway in this, through this reading and math crisis that we have on our hands here, man. So until next time, people. Until next time.
Till next time.